find Mr. Right could be a long struggle for some women, and some lucky few could land with Mr. Right quite by chance. Some may keep waiting till kingdom come to come across their Mr. Right. But the question is, does Mr. Right exist at all? Or is it just a part of sappy novels that most girls would swear by in their teens? I think it's time to do a reality check as the wedding season is about to begin very soon. Welcome to Gender Discourse. I'm Lottie Alaric. To carry this discussion forward, I have in the studio an eminent panel of guests. It is my privilege to welcome Advaita Kala, who is the author of Almost Single and is also writing film scripts now. And sitting to her right is Dr. Rajya Lakshmi, who's a sociologist at the Delhi University. And sitting to her right is Shiv, who is an upcoming actor. And to my left is Amrita Sharma, the author of What Did I Ever See in Him? So I welcome all of you to the show. Well, my first question is going to be very obvious, and it is going to be to this guest, Amrita. I want to ask you as to what really prompted you to write a novel which was named, interestingly, What Did I Ever See in Him?
That's exactly the point. Most of my friends, every now and then, all of them who are in a relationship, have been asking this question over and over and over again, and even after they get married. So that I found very interesting. That is something that they've been part of, and they're trying to fathom. It's almost like Alice in Wonderland. They can't seem to figure out what exactly they've seen in the guys they are with. And it's like a whole complicated thing, which is very interesting to find out the whole dynamics of it, about why we enter, why we are attracted to certain people, why we can't get along with some, and why we get along really well with some people. So the whole chemistry part of it is very interesting. And
so was it only the friends, or is there anything autobiographical also in this?
Quite a bit of it, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Shiv, I think the girls who may be watching today, you must be like this, eligible bachelor, if I'm not wrong. Well, I'm not going to ask you if you are in a relationship or not. So, Shiv, what does this really, what do you make of this whole thing, this discussion today and this lady who was writing a book on this? So, do you think there's ever this talk among the youngsters about Miss Right and Mr. Right and what have you?
Miss Right, well, yes, definitely there is a Miss Right. Maybe a superwoman, but
all right.
but there is a Miss Right amongst us men as well.
Okay.
Well, talking about what Amrita just said on those lines, well, I just think about two things. One is maybe grass is greener on the other side, or it's something to do with energies. Why? An individual is meeting another individual. I'm not talking about men and women here, but an individual meeting individual and clicking or not clicking depends on energies entirely. So, but yeah, talking about your answer, yeah, Miss Right is definitely there, in our minds, but well, let's see, if we ever get to see Miss Right.
All right, yeah, that's the question. Well, Rajya Lakshmi, now as a sociologist, I would like you to tell us as to this Miss Right concept and Mr. Right concept. I think this is very modern, right? If we were to talk about the ancient times, or not even ancient times, even earlier, say 50 years ago or something, if people would actually go out there to look for a boy for their girl, they would look for something which may not be the reasons today. Is that right?
Yeah. Actually, Mr. Right is a very, very modern, not only modern, very recent phenomenon.
Right.
Because if you go back to a few years, you'll see that the marriage was viewed as a union between two families, where people would be more considerate towards the culture of the household. It would be like where the two families sit together and decide, and more or less you can say it's arranged marriage, where the family would decide what is right for their daughter or for their son. And the roles within the marriage also were very clearly defined. So one was socialized into those roles, and one knew what exactly one is wanting to be, or like what is one is expecting in a marriage. But now with the changing society trends and the way that society is changing now, because of maybe consumerism, because of so much of media portrayal of the youngsters and the couples and the marriage, the whole equation about the marriage and all, there's a complete shift in the way in which the individuals have started looking at this institution of marriage.
That's right.
So marriage as an institution now finds a new definition with new roles. which as now everybody talks about Mr. Right and all. Because now from a group institution, it has become an individual institution.
That's right. Well, let me see what Adwaita would have to say to this. Now, your book, Almost Single, and we all know the kind of success that you've seen with that book. So, do you really agree with what she's saying, that now marriage as an institution is only between two people and it may not have so much to do with two families?
Well, yes, I think traditional family structures have changed. What you have now is essentially women. You know, women in the last, say, 15, 20 years with liberalization, with the, you know, the opportunities that they have, they're becoming bread earners, they're supporting families. We're seeing an increase in single-parent homes, which is not a very great trend, but you see that happening.
Right.
I think the whole dynamic of the family structure, which moved from the joint family system to the nuclear family, to people traveling outside for work, to women gaining employment, has had them also exercising their right to choose. I mean, earlier on, you had marriage was essentially what you got. You know, now marriage is really becoming what you want. And I think it has a certain extent a lot to do with the fact that women are getting more independent, you know, and are choosing to make choices when it comes to their life partners and things of that nature. So I kind of see this as a very logical culmination. I'm actually a little more concerned about where this is all heading. And that's something that is worth talking about, because we've seen the societies in the West who've gone through this sort of change about 30 years ago, and you see them now, whereas, for example, the United States, predominantly homes are single-parent homes, and the dominant parent role is that of the mother, you know, which means it's single-parent female homes. And I'd be interested, so I sort of, you know, I'm intrigued by that.
Personally, do you think that Mr. Right exists? Because you're
I think
single,
it's fiction.
it is a very obvious question to
It's
you.
fiction, you know, and you know, I think it's certainly fiction. And I did an essay on this a month ago for a magazine, where, you know, we were talking about these what men want lists, you know, and how every magazine, you flip through any women's magazine, and they'll have something about, you know, how to pleasure your man, or what a man wants, or how to keep your man. You know, it's constant.
I think we've read that, and it's been, you know.
And I think, you know, what's happening now is, and that was my whole contention in that piece, was that it's become more a case of what we want our men to want,
actually,
as opposed to what men actually want. We're just projecting, you know, what we expect of men through these lists and kind of asking them to fit those stereotypes. So I'm a little cynical when it comes to the whole concept of Mr. Right, Miss Right, what men want, what women want. I think it's really individual.
And after the show, I'll have to ask you what Adwaita wants. Well, time for us to slip into a break, but don't go away, as we'll be back very soon, as this discussion is getting really interesting.
Attention, all central excise and service tax assessees. The e-filing of returns is now mandatory from 1st October 2011. So log on to these websites and ensure that you file your returns on time. Customs and Central Excise.
Welcome back. This is Gender Discourse, and today we are asking what women want in Mr. Right. Well, I'd like to come to you here, Amrita. Now, in the course of writing this book, did you come across some revelations here and there, you know, about people, about women, about men? And how did this really go ahead when you were writing this?
Revelations, yes, lots and lots. And most of them were actually, you know, enlightening. Because, like Adwaita said, you know, it's more about choices now. And you realize that we know exactly what we want. And we try and look for it, and ultimately what we are faced with is the right to choose. You know what you want in life, you know what you want in your partner. We are independent, we are strong. We have this thing about you know, being totally independent emotionally and financially. So that gives us a lot of capacity to kind of narrow down our choices, narrow down what exactly we want, and then we start looking for somebody who kind of fits into that role. And I would say, for better or for worse, that is not a very easy thing, and that is not something which is practical.
That's right.
But yes, the whole journey, the whole search for it becomes more interesting. And the one thing that I keep telling that I came across was that women are not ready anymore to settle for something which they don't want. They'd rather stay single, they'd rather be happy with that, with their single status, but they don't want to get into something just for the sake of getting into something.
Right.
So that is something which is it was a very a nice revelation.
Well, Shiv is raising his eyebrows, so I actually need to ask him this, that what kind of pressure does it put on men? Because women seem to be, all out there, they know what they want, and more than that, they even know what they want, the men, what should they want, in a relationship. So what kind of pressure does it put on the men, on the boys?
Well, I can only explain you about this through an example here.
Right,
okay?
right. Please.
So this friend of mine broke up recently after like 4 years, right? And what so happens about a breakup, then suddenly you want to get into another relationship, this, that. But, honestly, I told him the best thing for you would be right now to be single.
Absolutely.
That's going to be healthy for you and for the other person around you, So, well, personally, I had a relationship, I've had relationships, good ones, bad ones, everything, but eventually I like myself single, and I like myself as being, okay, someone's misright, fine, I mean, be misright, but it's all about when you want to get married and be with that person, and if you can grow old with the person, or that's the ultimate question, according to me. Otherwise, if you just seeing other people, that's fine. I mean, if you want company, that's okay. But it's all about marriage and the institution of that, and how you want to spend your life. That's about it. I mean, seriously, it's just that women and men are the same when it comes to these situations. They are the same. It's not about women know more than men. Men also know a lot about what they want, what they don't want.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, now, Raji Lakshmi, do you think that this whole business of this, marriages being an institution and what have you, so somewhere it puts a pressure not only on the men but also on the women, and maybe that is the reason that we see a lot many youngsters, commitment phobic today?
Very true. Now, what I would like to first say is that, when you talk about saying that, what Mr. Right, and that whole concept actually is very relative, because what is right for one may not be right for the other.
Actually.
Also, we all change. Like what at this moment of my life, maybe I'm looking for, say, economic, support.
Right.
Maybe after a few years, I would look for an emotional. Maybe once my children grow and they get married, I want just a companion. Companion. So all these things, maybe tomorrow I'm sick, I want somebody to be very considerate towards me. So all these things keep changing. So we cannot say at this moment that, okay, this is Mr. Right, and maybe tomorrow he may become Mr. Wrong for me. So completely, there may be a complete shift in the person's, emotional plus, his own personality may just shift. So two personalities, when are they actually growing together and all, they change depending upon the circumstance and all. So at this moment to say who is Mr. Right for you, it's actually a very, very relative and a very difficult term also, because society, circumstances, everybody changes.
And sadly, the youth starts believing in this.
Believing
the way
this,
media portrays it, and the way it is all over the place, Mr. Right, Miss Right, and what have you.
It becomes a little too much on burden, both on men and women.
Right.
Because, then you start building up expectations. Now, recently, in one of the studies, we just, studied that why these families are breaking, why there's a divorce rate is increasing. That's mainly because in very fast-moving world, fast-moving society, there's too much of burden on each other. The expectations are too many that, you have to do this, 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 I have to do this, this, this. So, these kind of definition and all, and then, you start imagining that, yes, this is what I want, and that person is unable to do it, so then you think there is something wrong with that person, and he's not right for me, and you tend to go further and then say, no, he's not right, I made a wrong choice. So these things are really in the in our institutions now, which was missing earlier. Why? Mainly because earlier the expectations were very few. You were not the ones who was making a decision. I'm not saying that arranged marriages were good, but what I'm trying to say is that at that time, the family was there to support you, which would actually say that, look, we were the ones who chose. You also know that you went into a marriage without expecting too much.
Because the other members would act as buffers.
So therefore, there would be a lot of support system. And you know, whatever pressures you had outside, inside they were taken care of. Even if not immediate with your spouse, maybe the family. So because the blame would just go on the third person. Today what happens is, because you were the one who chose, because you are the one who are leading, more burden is for you to take care of all these issues.
So is that, Advaita, the reason that people keep finding for the Mr. or Miss Right, because of these demands that are there, because there's no buffer system today in the families?
I think so. I think it also has to do with Facebook, I think, you know, on some level. Because you were talking about this earlier, you know, I think there's so much, private lives have become in so many ways public, you know, that suddenly you have access to the way other people are living their, living their lives, you know, on such a different level, you know, where they're going on holiday, what they did for a first anniversary.
And I think those are the pictures that are watched the maximum.
Exactly. And, you know, and then media, you know, how relationships or intimate relationships or romantic relationships are displayed in advertisement, on film. There's definitely a lot of the Me Too syndrome that goes on. And certainly, I mean, if you look at the age at which most Indians get married, which is in their early to mid-20s, it's also, your 20s are also the decade which is character forming, wherein you change a lot and you evolve a lot. And especially in today's scenario, where you actually have women stepping out of the home and gender roles are not that clearly defined, you have people forming a character in these very critical years, and at the same time being married. And so you see this high level of divorce that comes in, and interestingly you see a lot of divorces, or figures suggest that in urban India, and I speak mostly in the context of urban India, divorces are initiated by women to a large extent, you know, and those are the figures reflect that. So you're in a situation really where women are exercising their rights. So even if they have gotten married earlier on through the arranged marriage scenario, I think by the time they hit their 30s, there's certainly a very definitive idea of what it means to be in a relationship or to be in a marriage. By that time they
have their own identities, they are financially independent, and they've evolved, as you say. You're very right. I think that's
so. I think delayed marriage is a good idea.
Yeah,
you know,
I know you're getting there.
Not because I'm already there, so I'm not plugging my case here, but I think there is a cultural shift. There is definitely a cultural shift that is underway, and I think the choices that my generation, or rather our generation of women make right now, are going to be critical in terms of how future generations of women, you know, the opportunities they have, the kind of family structures that exist. All those things are very much dependent on the choices that we make right now.
That's right. Now, Amrita, when you were writing this book, I'm sure you must have done a lot of research, whether it was your friends or the others. So what did you really find? Was there any common thread that the women said that they would want in Mr. Right?
One major thing which kept coming again and again to them and to me was that they were looking for somebody, because financial support they did not need anymore. They were looking for somebody who could provide them that emotional support, and somebody who could be the companion, somebody who could be the partner in the true sense, not in terms of providing the financial security, but somebody they could actually talk to, share, because at the end of the life today, the way I see it, it's very stressful. You need somebody to come back home to, not in terms of, you know, the romantic cliche, coming back to somebody in a cozy atmosphere or something. You need somebody you can sit and talk to, somebody who's everything together, you know, encapsulated in one person. The friend, the companion, the romantic partner, you know, the confidant. So they want all of it in one person. That is something which I feel that they really look for, supposedly in Mr. Right.
Right. Well, it's time for us to slip into a break, but before that, I'd like to say thank you to Advaita for joining us, as she's in a hurry, has to leave, though I really wish that you could stay. Well, people, don't go anywhere, as we'll be back in just a moment.
Hello and welcome to In Transit.
Slumdog is definitely a very important work, because given the fact that it was a far more difficult film to be able to be shot live in Bombay.
Relationships have become duty beyond duty.
Some of my photographs were published in a couple of newspapers and magazines.
Welcome back. This is Gender Discourse, and today we are asking what women want in Mr. Right. let me ask Amrita here that when you were writing this book, did you find anything common that most of these women had when they said that, okay, we are looking for these qualities in a man?
One thing that I've noticed is that in the course of the relationships that they were into, the major thing was the ego hassle that kept coming. And they, I realized, were not willing to settle for anything else. There's this friend of mine who just got married. And, small things. In the sense, they went to Dubai, they were working there, and she started getting paid more than he did. And this kind of led to problems. She said I couldn't figure out why exactly that was a problem, but I was resenting it. The fact that I was earning more and yet I had to do everything in the house. And the way I figured out was that it was turning out into an ego battlefield. And the sad part is that the minute you start treating a relationship as a battleground, one side will be the winner and one side will be the loser. You have to create a situation today where it's a win-win situation. You need people to put an equal amount of effort. They have to be willing to go the extra mile to make the relationship work. That is something I found very, very specifically missing in the relationship. All the friends that I spoke to, all the friends that I who confided in me about the relationships, this was very, very, this kind of stood out, that they were not willing to go that extra mile. You need to put in.
And I think you're very right when you said that, they start competing with each other because of whatever reasons. I think the main point that they miss is that they basically belong to the same party. I think this is what, two
missing.
people, is missing. And they start competing with each other, thinking that, okay, these are two opposite parties. I think that's where the crux lies.
That is absolutely.
So, Shiv, when you hear things like these and all that, so what does it make you think that from here on, do you think the institution of marriage is actually going to survive, or we are going to see more people in live-in relationships, just trial and error, say for a few years, and after that, okay, since no responsibilities, I can walk out of the door because I have one foot outside.
That's good, because this reminds me of, there's no compatibility at all, or these guys are not serious with each other, because they're not taking it seriously. Amrita said about extra mile. These people have to take the extra mile, marriage or no marriage. They have to take the extra mile. And talking about live-in, you're right. I mean, some really intelligent person told me that, to be with a person, you can only find out in 2 years. And after like 2 years, you find out that, you can be with this person or not. So just before that is what people say, the first 6 months of the honeymoon period of, being together and everything. Then the battleground, as you guys are calling it, starts. And from the battleground, then people decide, okay, 2 years, can you be with this person or can you not? That's when you start realizing, after the minimal to the maximum fights you've had, then you realize after 2 years, you can be with this person or not. So that's what I feel.
We used to think it is 7 years, because it was the 7 year itch. Remember the 7 year itch that we used to work?
It has become too short.
Oh yes, so now it has become too short, 2 years, and you can change your mind. Oh, I think that's fantastic. Well, on the serious note, Raja Lakshmi, what do you make of this? Live-in relationships, is it some kind of an escape mechanism?
Yes, I'll just first go back to what they were saying, they were just talking about. See, the whole thing is now in our society, or rather for that matter individual, there are two things. One, he wants in a girl, or the girl for that matter, Mr. Right, for the society or the way to be projected in the society. Look, he has to be good in everything. Similarly, the man also wants a perfect female as a partner to be seen around with. But then that changes entirely once that those two people are staying together, under the same roof. What I'm trying to say is that, outside a boy wants, okay, my girl should be very beautiful, she should be very independent, and she should be very smart to communicate everything.
Let me just interrupt you for a second. I'll just read out what mainly people want. Whether you go through film magazines, whether you have actors or actresses or whoever, they will say a good sense of humor, a gentleman, not afraid to express love and affection, ready to commit and accept responsibility. In addition, he must be reasonably good looking and in good physical shape. So which means that everybody probably wants Salman Khan in parts, and Shah Rukh Khan in parts.
Yes.
Now, is that possible ever?
No, I mean, yes. So what happens is, this is what I'm trying to say, that they have an image.
Right.
And you know, that image they want to be seen with and to be in. In the sense, when they are actually together outside the, house, then they accept each other, because obviously they come for meet for 2 hours, 3 hours, and then they just show their best. But once they start living together, then the whole problem comes. Then they say, oh, he's not the same person as he was outside. So that is also another problem with most of the youngsters. Because I have seen a lot of people, my students going through the way they talk, and when they start discussing with them, then they say, no, ma'am, it's okay, it's ma'am, ho jayega, ma'am, hum kar lenge. The other thing is also that today the generation is very, very, too confident, and they say that they can mold the situation the way they want to. And if suppose they are unable to do so, then they say, okay, fine, he's not Mr. Right for me, or she's not Miss Right for me. So these kind of concepts and these compatibility thing, and as maybe a middle-aged woman, I completely, not accept these terms at all, because these are terms which are very, very relative. These are terms which are very changing, and I have not been able to find the right definition also.
Right. And when you say, molding and all that, I remember a very interesting saying. Now, when women get into a relationship, they think that, oh, I'll change the man.
Yes.
And when a man gets into a relationship, he feels, oh, this woman must never change.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right?
Yeah.
But what happens is exactly the opposite. And then what happens, I think we all know what happens after that.
It's very difficult.
Tragic.
Right?
Yeah.
So what happens? I mean, where is the reality check? How does one actually get into the reality check, Amrita?
I think I would go back to the point you were making earlier, that when you get married to somebody, or when you're in a relationship, that person seems Mr. Right at that point of time, because in those circumstances, that person suits your needs at that particular time. And I feel that relationships are very alive, they're very dynamic, they keep changing every moment, and you have to change along with it. Your needs change, you change as a person, like she said, you grow as a person. And you need to keep changing what you need, what you want in a relationship accordingly. And I think if you keep moving with that flow, you'll be doing just fine.
That's right. I think that's very right. This is where probably the youngsters, they kind of just, what happens is, I think she's very right, you are growing together. Because at a certain age, your needs, your, things which you do for fun are different than what you would be doing, say, 10 years into the marriage. And this is where, and what happens is, if one person thinks that this person should be what he or she was, say 5 years ago, and now he or she is not the same, I think that is where the problems begin. Right? Yes. So again, coming to you here, Shiv, do youngsters really foresee all these things, or do they keep thinking that, okay, life is only going to be pubbing and clubbing and what have you?
Well, youngsters, I don't know about what youngsters are thinking these days.
I think you are a youngster yourself. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking totally different. I mean, for me, the ideal situation being with a girl would be, the girl must be with a dog. I love a dog in a relationship as well.
So if there's no dog, then there could be trouble.
There could be trouble, yeah. But yeah, talking about youngsters, I mean, they have to. They're smart these days. It's not about, they're confident, but they're very smart. They're smarter than the generation before, for sure. Yeah, so I totally predict that these guys can foresee the future and stuff. But these guys must understand, couples must understand that, I'm totally for a live-in relationship. Have a relationship for 6 months, be in your own place, and if you're serious, get in a live-in relationship, for 2 years, then see whether you can be with the person or you can't, because ma'am's logic is totally...
His needle is, gets stuck at 2 years. Yeah. I can see that. Okay, 2 years, right.
2 years.
I would say that, I would say that, if suppose in live-in relationship is a major reason, I would say, for breaking up of the institution of marriage. Why? Mainly because, see, this live-in relationship comes with no demands.
That's right.
And people are not ready to take any kind of demands or responsibilities.
Oh,
now, if I may sound very strict about it, I would say that, one should start looking at this institution as something which is permanent, because in the long run, it is good for the generations to come. Why? Mainly because it helps emotionally, it helps in formation of a personality which becomes stronger. Why? Mainly because if you are not in a permanent relationship, that instability is always hanging, which, makes a person very stressful. Because all the time you are on the edge. yes, no kind of, whether I'll have this person with me today, what will happen to that person tomorrow. So I would say to the young generation today that you must try to look at this institution as something which is permanent, strong and good for you. And not just say that you want to experiment with it, you want to experiment with a spouse, because you know, today maybe there could be a sexual attraction, tomorrow they could not be there, it may not be there.
That's right.
So then you can't go on like, you know, shifting, because then that becomes very difficult. It's like a job also, you can't keep on shifting. If you have something which is permanently fixed, you can plan a future which is stable and which gives you a lot of strength, inner strength. This is what I would like to say, and you know,
that's
say
right.
this
And I
to
think,
Shiv,
yes, no, it totally has a lot of depth in whatever you've said up till now. Well, time for us to slip into another break, but we'll be back very quickly, so stay tuned.
मुझे जाना है यार।
अरे खेती है ना, उधर चला जा।
ओके। इधर नहीं, शौचालय है ना साहब?
ये शौचालय, कूड़ादान, ये गांव इतना साफ कैसे?
अरे पता नहीं, हम सब ने पंचायत के साथ मिलकर इस गांव को निर्मल बनाया है।
आप और आपकी पंचायत ही बना सकते हैं अपने गांव को स्वच्छ और स्वस्थ।
तो आओ करें निर्मल भारत का निर्माण।
फल फूल और सब्जी की किस्में, बड़ा उत्पादन, बने उत्पाद, आगे बढ़े सुनहरी क्रांति की ओर, छाया उजाला चारों ओर, ये है ICAR।
Welcome back. You're watching Gender Discourse, and today we are asking what women want in Mr. Right. Welcome back. You're watching Gender Discourse, and today we are asking what women want in Mr. Right. Well, since we were talking about live-in relationships, so let me ask the author here that, Amrita, do you think that when two people are in a live-in relationship, somewhere in the back of their mind, they do know that there is an open door through which I can get out anytime I feel like? So does that mean that there could be pretenses, a lot of pretenses in that period when they are in that relationship? Plus, they maybe they're not putting their complete effort into that relationship.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's actually like that. When you're in a live-in relationship, you know, there's no commitment as such. You're not obliged to stay in the relationship for a certain... There are no commitments.
Right.
And you're there just because you're, as Shiv said, experimenting. So this is just something, you know, it's like you're trying it out for size.
Yeah.
And just to see if it fits. But, and because you know that the minute it's not working out, you can just walk away. You don't put in your 100%. And which I think is the beginning of the end, because the minute you're not totally committed, totally giving in, and you're to the relationship, it does not work the way it's supposed to.
That's right.
And there's something always missing from the relationship, and that is what I think is a very sad part, which is why I would not recommend live-in. I'm sure many others would disagree, but that is the reason, that is the logic that I feel doesn't work. And marriage, like she said, as an institution, we need to make sure that it stays, and you need to give it that it's due. You know it's a committed relationship, you know you're into it, you'll try and put in everything.
True.
I'm not saying that one should not get divorced if it's not working out, but do that once you know that you're left with no choice, and this is the best thing to do. Not because this is one of the things to do.
One of the things to do. But let me see what she would have to say.
I'll give you two scenarios here, yeah? One is 1970 arranged marriage plot, yeah? So the parents are saying, okay, you meet this person, you meet the girl, go out for a coffee, see if you're compatible. They come back, have coffee, yeah, we'll get married. Doesn't make sense.
No, Vivian, we're not even saying that you are only supposed to meet for a coffee date and get married. Sorry, dude. I mean, we're not really saying that.
So then meet for a month, 2 months, you know, meet out. Yeah, you're still not living with each other, which you have to do, which is the whole institution, which is, you know, the whole point. And then the second scenario, 2011, you meet the person, okay, arrange, fine. Parents are making you meet, arrange, go have coffee. Yeah, coffee is fine. Step one, have coffee, that's good. Okay, we had coffee, we're compatible. We had coffee now for 2 months or 3 months. Now, what's the next step? Live in together for 6-8 months, for a year, you know? 1 year you live each other, yeah, this person farts, this person does this, that's fine, this person has that, you know, problems, this, that. Can you get married to each other, yes or no? Makes total sense. Makes total sense for me. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say live-in. All the parents everywhere should say live-in is fine if they're serious about their child.
So what you're saying is that there will be no pretenses and everybody is giving their 100%. Are you saying that even in a relationship, a live-in relationship, would two people be giving their 100%?
Definitely, and yeah, why not? I mean, still in live-in relationships, my friends, yeah, someone's taking care of the water, someone's taking care of the food, someone's doing that. So they have their responsibilities and yeah, they have an open door, that's fine. But yeah, it's again very relative to the couple, basically. You know.
Don't you think that those small things which could be insignificant in a marriage could actually blow out of proportion when one is in a live-in relationship because you're not ready to give in as much as you would if one would be in a proper marriage?
Well, it's just about saying that we're married. I mean, live-in is almost getting married. If you are staying with a person who you love, you have to love the person. You can't ill-treat the other person just by saying, oh, you're not married to me, I can do this. I can go out, I can date someone else probably. You know, that can't happen. You know, you're almost married, but it's just that you haven't signed the papers or whatever, or walked
So which means you're saying that even if you come across a Miss Right, you would want her to, you put her through this grind, if I can say that. Yes?
Yeah.
Or through this test.
Yeah, Miss Right will only become Miss Right once she's passed this test. You know what I'm saying? Miss Right, you can't see a person and say, yeah, oh, Miss Right, hello, I've been waiting for you. You have to get to know the person and do all these steps.
Shiv, you don't know what you're getting into because all the young girls are watching you today, right?
And a dog, yeah. If anyone's listening, a dog as well, yeah. Dog, women, everyone. You see the women. 1 year, you spend time, live in probably, walk the dog together. That's a good exercise.
Okay, so let me see what the sociologists would say here. Now, definition of marriage and this definition of live-in, do they really make sense at all?
I would say no. Why? Because see, what happens is that I'm not talking as an individual. I'm talking as a person who is in a a larger interaction, like in the sense with the group. In that sense, now what happens is in a living relationship, the testing and all these kind of things are very, very relative. It's very difficult to say that because how we react to what we react in a particular manner is something which we cannot define. So when there is no definite way of reacting, because two people would react entirely in a different manner given the same situation, because it's very, very individualistic and it may change to, the next day also. So I go back to the same thing that, in a fast moving personalities, relationships, it is very difficult to say. So that testing, I do not agree with it at all. Two, I also don't agree with this whole concept of living relationships mainly because in the longer run, for the society to survive in a proper manner where they could concentrate on other issues, the larger issues like economic issues, political issues, cultural issues, it is very, very important that certain institutions which should be intact. And this being a primary institution, primary I would mean that which fulfills very, very primary basic needs, this should not be looked at as an unstable institution. I completely agree with what Amrita has said that, suppose in case there is an essential thing where there needs to be a divorce, then yes, definitely. But not with an intention that, you have this live-in relationship which is very temporary. You also know that it's a very temporary one. So this kind of, because I would say that younger generation today is not ready to take the responsibilities, because everybody loves freedom. I would definitely love to be a free bird without any responsibilities. But if I don't take the responsibility, then how would I actually take things forward in life?
True.
Because I have to own something. If I don't own, I'm not saying that you own an individual, but something you have to own, so that you become passionate about it, so that you give your best to it. And you have to have that kind of feel like, look, this is the best and I have to make this as the best. So therefore I give the best and the maximum I give. So when I start giving maximum, obviously I cannot find faults in it.
True.
So these kind of things,
there will be faults, you're ready to work
on it.
Yes.
Because you know that this is something which you want and it should happen. So I'm sure, if the younger generation today starts looking at this, then they would completely forget about Mr. Right and Miss Right. Why? Mainly because Mr. Right in my dictionary does not exist.
That's right. Okay, Amrita, so would you want to add anything to that when she says that responsibility is the key word here? So maybe the people who actually talk about the qualities of Mr. Right and Miss Right, if you actually go through some studies or even if you talk to the youngsters, those qualities are majorly external. Right? How he looks or how she looks, how much money is she making, and which car so and so is driving, and which bag one is carrying. So don't you think that all this can be very temporary and it's too basic? It's just on the surface.
It's on the surface, true. And I think my advice to them in their search for Mr. Right would be to kind of broaden their perspective a little. They really need to understand that this is something, like she said, they need to own up something. They need to own up their responsibility, their part of the commitment in a relationship. And I personally feel, which is something I've said in my book over and over again, that relationships are very important to us. They are very important for our growth, and they really help us in becoming the individuals we want to be. But for that, we don't really need to fight it out. We really need to be very mature about it, and we really need to, once we found the person, both Shiv and ma'am, I just wanted to say ma'am, is that they have been saying that they are not very comfortable with the idea of Mr. Right and Miss Right. I totally agree, because that would kind of be a total, a misnomer. But the thing is, we need to find the person who suits our needs at the moment, who is compatible with us, and who would be the right partner at this point of time in achieving what we want in life. Ultimately, a good relationship is the best for us, for our growth. And a happy relationship, I think it shows. You're a happy person, you have a happy life, and everything seems to be going just right. Instead of like the case that Shiv was mentioning, his friend just had a breakup. I'm sure he must be, kind of going into depression, feeling that his world is falling apart. It happens. And that is the main thing. That is when you realize that relationships are a very integral part of our life, and we need to make it work, even if we have to leave our egos behind and put in our effort, because we want to make our life happy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's
I'm taking two words from Amrita, extra mile, and for all of you over there as well, definitely, man. I mean, anyone can be a special person. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But everyone will have problems as well. But it's just about getting to the extra mile and just working things out, and in the manner you work things out. So that it's not spoiling your future with that person. That's about it. I mean, how are people living since so long?
Absolutely.
This is the ideal situation. This is how you take care of your relationship problems. That's about it.
Right. Well, so Rajalakshmi, we do have, it's not that the youngsters do not understand all these things, or probably sometimes, and also I think I would like to say here that the media somehow, floats the images of couples in such a manner that everybody starts thinking that this is for real. Right? And they all start imagining that, oh, I am going to have a guy or I'm going to have a girl who looks nothing less than the most popular film star. Right?
True,
so how does this reality check really take place among the youngsters?
The reality check has to come from within. I mean, I say that it has to come within. It's also the way one looks at things. I mean, it's all, again, I go back to the same thing, saying that it is the way you look at it. And it is the way you have to have your priorities right and set. And you should know what you want and what and to work towards it without actually expecting from the other person. Like, you know, you should say what you are and what you want, and you should start looking, you know, at the things to work on. Instead of expecting that that person will contribute to this, that person. I'm not saying that you should not expect, you should. But at the same time, you should also try to see that what you are capable of and how much you are going. Usually when people say that marriage is a sacrifice, people say, no, it's not a sacrifice, and people do it. But I would say, yes, it is. Why? Mainly because you are trying to sacrifice at many places what you want and how you should behave. I'm not saying that you curtail your emotions or you curtail your personality, but what I'm trying to say is you change according to it. Because many a times there are many demands which you otherwise would have not been ready to fulfill, but once you enter and you see the other person, it's good for the other person, it's good for your own self, you start working on it. So when you start working on it, you have to obviously leave certain things behind. You can't get everything. Absolutely. You know, you have to leave certain things behind to get certain things. So that kind of an attitude should be there.
That's right.
In youngsters or in people who are trying to get into a relationship. It's not just between a husband and wife, it's also between two friends.
True.
You know, two male friends or two girlfriends for that matter. If you want to, you know, continue with that relationship, there are many times you have to sacrifice in terms of time. Suppose she says, come with me, and you say, no, I'm busy. You can't keep on saying you're busy. Sometimes you have to forget about
just
the
like
fact that
Raji
you're
Lakshmi
busy.
sitting here today with us, we know that she has to go. Well, Amrita also, as she talked about expectations, I think I really would want to talk about this a little more. When we say expectations, I think these two people have to have realistic expectations from each other. I think the problem begins when those expectations are not realistic.
Absolutely. And one thing that I've come across often, you know, more often than I would like, is that I've seen relationships suffering by comparison.
Oh, absolutely right. I wanted to come to that.
You know,
right.
It's like they keep saying you used to do this,
Keeping
you used
up
to
with
be
the
that.
Joneses, as they say.
Absolutely. This is something we need to get out of. This is something we need to leave behind. Like she said, you know, we need to keep moving. And the minute we start doing that, you realize that things are working out. And expectations, absolutely, they have to be realistic. You need to expect things which he is capable of doing at this point of time. You know, I remember she was citing a case where, you know, you have 2 hours to meet right now. You put the best foot forward, and like Shiv said, you know, when you're in a live-in relationship, you know exactly what the other person is about. And but later, when you're kind of in a full-fledged relationship, you get to see and be with the other person 24/7, with the flaws, with the you know, good and the bad points.
As they say, love me with warts and all.
Absolutely.
Right.
So that is when you realize that you need to have expectations because you are part of a relationship, but then keep them to a certain level, which if they are met, you're very happy. If they're not met, you still manage to love the person for whatever he or she is.
True.
So.
And I think what also people would need to remember is that, you know, marriage cannot be a destination. It is a journey from which you have to start beginning. The challenge begins right from the day you say, I do.
I do.
Right?
Yes, really. I
Yes,
will do.
Shiv?
Definitely.
Yeah, the moment one has said that, I do. I mean, that's where the challenge begins.
Very true.
Absolutely.
So finally, Shiv, what would you like to say? That does Miss Right or Mr. Right really exist, or is it just this, you know, fragment of some people's imagination, or maybe some magazines and media and what have you?
I would love to hope so, that there is a Miss Right. But yeah, I came here for the answers. What do women want for Mr. Right? What do they want? Do they want a stubble, or do they want clean shaven, or what do they want exactly? Relative, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, all in all, I'll just say, yeah, everyone's going to get into relationships, but it's all about getting it right, and you know, be serious if you're in a relationship. Be very serious, and just think about whether you actually can be with the person or not. That's the ultimate question for me.
That's right. And I think each couple is different. You know, what may be important to me may not be important to the other one. Well, so finally, what would be your comments, Raji Lakshmi?
I've said most of the things. The one final comment would be to the youngsters today, that, you know, you must try to understand the whole institution. You must understand yourself. You must understand the larger needs and try to, you know, fit into that. I'm not saying that, you know, you as an individual are not important. You have a prime responsibility towards yourself. But at the same time, it is also very important to look at the other needs besides just smaller needs.
True.
One thing I
Okay,
would like
Amrita,
to,
yes, your
one
final
thing
comments
I would
here.
like to say, tell Shiv, is that you don't have to worry about finding Miss Right. The minute you find her, you'll know she's right because she will love you for just the way you are and what you are.
Stubble or no
stubble. Or no stubble.
Just keep the basics right. Huh?
Absolutely. Well, let me say thank you to all three of you for coming today, and we had this interesting discussion on what women want in Mr. Right. Well, people, there can never be a single conclusion about Mr. Right, just as there can be no single conclusion about Miss Right. So we can safely say to each his own. This search for Mr. Right and Miss Right will go on forever. Till such time that you need to search for your right partner, you can rely solely on your own instinct or trust the judgment of your elders. But this is one gamble that each individual has to play. You may win or you may lose, but the key is not to give up. On that encouraging note, it's time for me to wrap up. Catch me next week in an equally engaging discussion. Till then, this is Lottie Alaric saying goodbye and take very good care of yourselves.
There is an indefinable, mysterious power that pervades everything. I feel it, though I do not see it. It is this unseen power which makes itself felt and yet defies all proof, because it is so unlike all that I perceive through my senses. It transcends the senses, but it is possible to reason out the existence of God to a limited extent. Even in ordinary affairs, we know that people do not know who rules or why and how he rules. And yet they know that there is a power that certainly rules.